creator of the NRE brand, gives his insight and thoughts on the world of comic books, gaming, tech, and media industries as the host of Neo Reality Collective. Experience a slew of regular episodes covering news and pop culture, along with reviews and editorial pieces showcasing the best and worst of our ever-expanding multimedia world.
Welcome everyone to Neo Reality Collective. I am your host, Eric Brown. We're back with the 94th episode of NRC, and Star Wars Celebration happened this year in Japan. Yeah, well, to be fair, I'd probably be mangry all the time considering how I've been feeling about Star Wars in recent years, but yeah, even though I have been, despite my history and practically my relationship with the Star Wars franchise and the subsequent handling by Disney, it has led to me having basically a compendium state to go ahead and talk about Star Wars from now until the end of time, even though there are times I just want to quit. But yeah, Star Wars Celebration happened, and there were some things that came out. I will firstly foremost say that sadly, no, KOTOR remake has not been talked about, sadly, so that sucks. So I'll get that out of the way just to compound the disappointment. But we did get some hopefully good news. We learned the next big Star Wars animated series already in development, and it's going to focus on the return of Darth Maul, and it's going to involve him leading the criminal underworld 1 year after the events of Star Wars The Clone Wars. So, because Star Wars Celebration has this operating mentality of having trailers on the show but not actually publish them online because probably they hate us, they announced that there would be a show called Maul Shadow Lord and whatnot, and it would explore the Phantom Menace's villains' rise to the top of the criminal underworld in a world that is uncharted from the Empire for now. And the trailer leaked online following this announcement because there was a trailer showcased at the show, but sadly didn't. And the animation style is very much in line with the recent development of Lucasfilm, such as The Bad Batch, Tales of the Underworld, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, and the Clone Wars at the end. And they decided to continue the story of Darth Maul, basically being the powerful force that he's known for. And then we get the big reveal of what's going to happen in this. Darth Maul is going to have an apprentice, and surprisingly, Lady Qi'ra is not going to be in this. I'm like, she probably will if the show does well enough and they go further into the timeline. It says there's like what, a 15-year gap between Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of Star Wars Rebels, where Darth Maul is on Malachor. So maybe the show will eventually bridge the gap between them, but yeah. There is a Twi'lek character, red-skinned, that will become his new apprentice, and people were like, wait, is that who I think it is? And yeah, it's almost certainly confirmed at this point. Darth Talon of the Star Wars Legends continuity is being introduced into the Disney continuity, except this is not really Darth Talon in the broadest sense. Okay, so let me try to break down as best I can about this whole thing. So Darth Talon is a very iconic character for many in the Legends continuity. She was introduced not in the Clone Wars era or even during Luke Skywalker's time in the Legends timeline, but was introduced instead in the Legacy comics, which are stories that take place about 100 or so years after the events of the Empire's fall in the in Episode 6, and therefore it'd be like about 30 or so years after the last stories that happened after the Legacy of the Force saga that we got that involved Jason Solo's fall to the dark side. But yeah, this is basically this introduction. We got this Twi'lek character who's red skinned, has all these tattoo markings all over her body, and a lot of people really loved her character well, actually, they found her very, very intimidating, very interesting, and how loyal she was to Darth Krayt because she was part of the one Sith. She would never interacted with Darth Maul, and apparently, I think even Disney liked her for a time, because when they originally were developing The Force Awakens, there was some old concept art that came out that showed Darth Talon, but in a more friendly consumer environment clothing, because in the comics she was very showing and provocative in her appearances. But yeah, they had concept art made for her for The Force Awakens, because originally it seemed like Disney did aim to originally tell the continuation of the Legends timeline in film, which would have solved so many problems that Star Wars fans have nowadays with the Disney canon. Or at the very least, they should just provide a proper ending to the Legends timeline and resolve all the storylines that were left unaccounted for. And publish the Story of the Jedi novel, but that trilogy, but like that's a completely different topic. Yeah. Oh, and so yeah, there was this whole stuff about Darth Talon, and I don't know if they ever killed her off in the Legacy comics at the end where one Sith fell apart. I don't think they ever did that. But Darth Talon eventually would become so iconic with people that George Lucas took notice of her and was like, I want to put her in a video game. Because originally there was a plan to get a video game made with Darth Maul, or at least a clone or a descendant of Darth Maul in the Legends timeline, to be around during the Legacy era, which is, like I must mention, over 100 years after the Clone Wars. Like over 150, I think. Yeah. And the plan was for Darth Maul and Darth Talon to be like a team-up group and whatnot, and do these crazy adventures in a Force Unleashed style video game, but for full-on Sith, which would have been fucking awesome. There was concept art about that abandoned Darth Maul game, and I think it would have done well to have a game where you're playing fully as the villain and not the Force Unleashed version where you play as the villain, but then you transition into a hero, but having be a full-on villain, that would have been interesting. And yeah, Darth Talon it was apparently super popular for LucasArts and Lucasfilms. They really were ready to push her, probably as a very big mainstay for Star Wars storytelling. And then the Disney buyout happened, they rebooted the continuity, they changed the timeline and all that, and she was left in the cutting room floor, essentially, for many. But yeah, people still were hoping for her to be a for her to be eventually a iconic character, and they even made mods for her, integrating her into Battlefront 2 2017. But yeah, George Lucas did have plans for her to be heavily featured in his version of a Star Wars sequels as Maul's new apprentice, with her master serving in an Emperor Palpatine-like role as the Crime Lord. Talon would have been his Darth Vader, but the idea was scrapped when Disney decided to head in a direction, so it will be interesting to see how they go with that. But this is something I've been wanting to ask. So the brief synopsis that came out is saying this: after the Clone Wars, Maul plots to rebuild his criminal syndicate on a planet untouched by the Empire. In a new series set after the events of the final season of the Clone Wars, Maul rises again to lead the underworld factions. So when I heard this project was in development, my thoughts were, this sounds like everything the Book of Boba Fett should have been, where Boba Fett rules the criminal underworld in the Book of Boba Fett, but they completely botched the whole thing, and people to this day think it was the worst Star Wars show, which says a lot considering the Acolyte exists, from what I've heard. I just don't watch stuff like this anymore because it just boggles my mind. Like, I heard the plot points and everything, but it just, like, when you think about it, it's like so confusing, and certain characters that were in the show and knowing certain things when they contradict that later just confused me, unless their memories were erased conveniently. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting where they take this show, and I'm hoping it goes full on the violence, like be an adult animation project where it just goes full on crazy. So, not only that, Sam Witwer, who voiced the iconic Darth Maul in the Clone Wars series and will return to voice him again in the new series, it was revealed that it will take place a year after the Clone Wars have ended, and Maul is in a very challenging place because the people that he had around him, a lot of them scattered or betrayed him during the Clone Wars, so we're dealing with a guy who is trying to figure out, well, my God, what is my purpose? Maul, you have to remember, is a classically trained Force user, a classically trained Sith. And they explain why he never give Palpatine to the Republic and the Jedi. He comes from a time of magic, knights, passion, enthusiasm, aggression, fire, and magic. Now he is seeing an empire that he knew was coming, and the magic and the colors being sucked out of the universe. How does he feel about that? Did he see that this was going to be the way that it was? Is this different than what he expected, and how does he feel that affects him? What does he want to do about it? Can he do anything about it? He's not very equipped right now, so this is a guy who's trying to figure out what his destiny is. His destiny is to be killed by Obi-Wan in Rebels. Sorry for the big advanced spoiler, but it's been public knowledge for years. He also noticed that Maul's perspective at this point was shaped by his upbringing, saying something else. He was trained his entire life to hate and kill Jedi. He killed more Jedi than people were aware of in the Clone Wars. You know, there were indications that he and Savage Opress went off on a rampage as well. It was worse than you think, and now they're gone. How does he feel about the Jedi, his sworn enemy? How does he feel about them now that they are gone? You know, all these things, so we're challenging this perspective. So what is his destiny? Who he is, and what he wants his greatest enemy to fight and destroy, and he learns that perhaps part of his destiny is to inspire a young person, train an apprentice. And yeah, we already know who it is, saying that she is a very surprising character, and I can't tell you that much more, but she is quite something. And it was also teased that people who worked on the Force Unleashed are part of this project, which is now making people hope inadvertently that Galen Merrick will show up in some capacity. No idea if that's going to be the case. Yeah. And then they ask him why he didn't turn on Palpatine, and yeah. They finally asked the question why he didn't give him up. You have a show with a Jedi like, we know that there's someone named Darth Sidious. You have a show with a Jedi like, we know there's someone named Darth Sidious. We know that he gets manipulating things, and we're trying to figure out who this is. The Sith Lord Maul through all those years knows exactly who the Sith Lord is. He could just go to the phone booth essentially and call up the Jedi and say, it's Palpatine, hang up the phone and really screw up the plans. He never does, and why he doesn't give him up. Saying the only one he finally decides I'm going to turn on Palpatine is at the very end of the Clone Wars. Order 66 and the Clone Wars ends. He becomes so freaked out that in desperation he reaches out to Ahsoka Tano, but Palpatine has caused so much suffering for this guy. Palpatine took away Savage Opress, he killed his family, Palpatine took away his mother, who was revealed to be Mother Talzin, and that was a whole layer of stuff talking about. And Palpatine showed no loyalty, and the moment Maul found loyalty in Savage Opress, he took that from him. So what is it? Why did Maul maintain his loyalty? What is it about the character? What is it about Maul that we are learning from things like that? And yeah, it's going to be crazy. And I'm curious to know if Palpatine will eventually show up in the show, because, well, this is Darth Maul we're talking about, but he probably no longer sees Maul as a significant threat to his power, so he's like go and, my loyal Inquisitores, go and take care of him, I don't really care. I'm too busy governing and corrupting the galaxy into my image. That's basically what he's probably doing. Meanwhile, Star Wars Zero Company was announced, and then it finally got a trailer that focuses on the near end of the Clone Wars era. Though, yeah, Respawn Entertainment is making a turn-based strategy game that is basically their XCOM Star Wars during the celebration in Japan. Saying their vision for Star Wars Zero Company is grounded in gameplay design pillars that weave the immersive Star Wars galaxy with engaging turn-based tactics. The the CEO and creative director of Bit Reactor for this also making this game. So it's our aim to deliver with an original Star Wars story from the Clone Wars era that has some meaningful outcomes for players' choices and a deep turn-based tactical combat with an approachable cinematic presentation. The protagonist of the single-player game is named Hawks, a former Republic officer who must command an unconventional outfit of professionals for higher hailing from across the galaxy. The titled Zero Company, its members must set aside their own differences to overcome nearly impossible odds and take on an emerging threat that will consume the galaxy if left unchecked. And one of the things that would reveal that the game's structure as described in the press release sounds like XCOM, and players will embark on a campaign of tactical operations and investigations across the galaxy. Between missions, they will develop a base of operations, gather intelligence through a network of informants, stay one step ahead of Zero Company's adversaries. Players will have the freedom to create and customize their own squad of recruit operators while getting to know a cast of newly authored Star Wars characters. And one's a clone trooper, so I'm pretty sure that's going to cause problems. One's a Jedi. And another one is a Mandalorian, which was awesome. But the one that really people picked out on was an Umbaran. You know, that group of people that are kind of pissed off at the Republic for, the death of their senator at the hands of one of their own of the Republic's own Senate assistants back in the Clone Wars series that led to Umbaran rebelling against the Republic and transforming the war into a Vietnam-like structure, and then there was the whole issue with Krell. So yeah, that was a mess, and now you're telling him, Hey, look, could you work with this clone trooper here that was responsible for the murder of your culture and whatnot? Oh, and we're working with the Republic to fight the Separatists, so could you be cool with that? Let's try to be cool about that. I'm pretty sure that's not going to cause any storytelling tension at all. So Hayden Christensen also was revealed to be returning to the role of Anakin Skywalker for Ahsoka Season 2. Yes! And saying there's not much I can share, but Anakin will be back for Season 2. And Christensen also talked about how there are still stories left to tell for Darth Vader after Revenge of the Sith, saying, Christensen told Comic Book, saying, there's a lot that we can still explore with Vader. I think from where we left off after Episode 3 and everything that he has to reconcile after he's trapped in this new version of himself, there's just a lot of very rich stories that we could still tell. I'm still saying they could probably still make a Purge storyline where he's just murdering Jedi left and right. Like, you could adapt the Star Wars... They could adapt the, let's see, if I were to say, they could adapt the Star Wars Purge comics from Legends and also adapt the Star Wars Rise of Darth Vader book and combine it into an original tale, but, they're probably not going to do that because it'd be too violent or something like that, but, I'll be all for it. Plus, it would also kickstart the whole trend of the Empire constantly kicking Kashyyyk's ass constantly, because for some reason that was a thing a lot in the Legends timeline. Like, every time the Empire was around, they always kept attacking Kashyyyk over and over and over and over and over and over again, to basically turn the Wookiees into slaves or to kill Jedi that are hiding there. Though, honestly, what the original plan for Return of the Jedi was said to be, the original plan was to have it all culminate on Kashyyyk and, the Wookiees, the Wookiees rising up and fighting the Empire finally. I get the feeling that had that stuck, it would have made all the constant Imperial attacks on Kashyyyk for God knows how many times make more sense, because that at least led to the obvious conclusion it's going to culminate with their finally getting their revenge. But that's a different matter. Meanwhile, Star Wars has also revealed Visions Volume 3 release date and the Ninth Jedi series. Hooray! So, the director of the Ninth Jedi short appeared to preview one of the new entries, Child of Hope, and he stated the short will end with Kara leaving to search for her father, and the story will continue in a newly announced spin-off series. But Visions Volume 3 will premiere on October 29, 2025. During the same panel, he officially announced Star Wars Visions presents The Ninth Jedi, a longer-form spin-off series based off of his original short. Say, director, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to say this, is making one more film this time, Child of Hope, and it ends with Kara's departure to look for a father in the first short film. And he explained that the story follows Kara as she searches for a father Jiro, the creator of lightsabers that change color based on the Force. What in the world was the reason for such lightsabers? I think it will be a story where those secrets will be told. He will serve as supervising director of the spinoff. And not only that, oh god. Lucasfilm also announced an exciting, quote, Star Wars Fortnite collaboration, including a 5-part saga that will end with a live end-of-season event, each week featuring new content such as the themed battle pass and force powers like Force Lightning. The collaboration will run from May 2nd to early June. Also, we're finally getting Darth Jar Jar in there, so yeah, they're finally giving Jar Jar that respect that he was originally supposed to be getting, but then people didn't like the Phantom Menace, so we all know how that worked out. And considering how well the Phantom Menace's politics have aged well in the recent years, I'm sure this is not going to depress anyone. Meanwhile, one of the co-creators of Lost, Carlton Cust, I'm pretty sure I butchered his last name because I cannot imagine him having a name that, or I want to say Cruz, but I'm not sure, is developing a Star Wars series with his son, Watchman, and the leftover screenwriter Nick Hughes, and say there are particularly no other details available about the show, such as which characters we will include, when it will take place in the Star Wars timeline, and which actors will be cast, according to Variety. The fellow Lost co-showrunner Damon Lindelof also has a Star Wars project in development at one point, but that fell apart. In addition to Lost, Carlton's other TV credits include Bates Motel, The Strain, Colony, Lock and Key, and Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, which I hear was good stuff, but I haven't watched it myself, but it does involve the CIA, so that's probably some potential there. I honestly am hoping for another long-form series, like a long-term Game of Thrones-like series. Like I said this, like they could easily do that with Knights of the Old Republic, though at the same time people want to play the game remake, but I'm like, okay, they don't have to tell the story of Revan in the games, like in the, not in the game, like, but in the show, they could showcase other characters in the Old Republic or during the wars of the Knights of the Old Republic, during the Jedi Civil War, and during the Purge and all that, or they could do a prequel series that focus on the Mandalorian Wars with Revan, Malik, and all these other iconic characters, and showcase the increasing depravity that it became. But, yeah, that's just my take. Also, during the celebration, they announced that the actor of Amin Best, aka Jar Jar Binks, took the stage to announce a new show in the LEGO Star Wars line called LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, Pieces of the Past. In Pieces of the Past, a new threat rises in the galaxy, and Sid Greenbling and Darth Dev must combine their powers of force building and Sith breaking to stop it. Alongside Jedi Bob and a bunch of other characters, they will journey into the deepest corners of the LEGO Star Wars lore, uncovering pieces of all the galaxies that have come before. Along with a bunch of the returning cast members, the 4-piece sequel series welcomes Ashley Dickinson as LEGO Brickshead Ahsoka Tano, and Ben Schwartz as Jackson. Yeah, that's a thing. So, not only that was shown, but they also revealed that the Mandalorian Grogu trailer was leaked, and it revealed a whole bunch of stuff, mostly the Mandalorian continuing his journey and kicking ass and being awesome, laying waste to a squad of Imperials on board an AT before the bounty hunter reports back to Sigourney Weaver's New Republic pilot. There's heaps of Grogu's adorableness and a surprise appearance from Star Wars Rebels' Zeb, and the return of the Razor Crest. I don't know how that got back because wasn't it destroyed? What is this going to lead to a meme where Din goes ahead and says, "I repaired it," and everyone's going to just look at him and be like, "How?" We also see Grogu's growing strong in the Force as he lays waste to an Imperial mouse. There is also a pretty terrific shot of him swimming. And we catch a glimpse of a character who has not been seen since the Clone Wars early seasons. The son of Jabba the Hutt, Rota the Hutt, in an arena. And I saw the image of him, and I was like, damn, that Hutt is ripped. Like, how the fuck did those... I thought they were born to be gigantic, blobless slugs, because they're supposed to be a metaphor for gluttonous greed. But no, Rhoda was like, no, I'm going to break the cycle and be ripped! And whatnot. So, I was surprised at the design they decided to go with. I'm curious to know if he still remembers everything that went on in his childhood and how he handled, the death of his father and the death of his family, essentially. But yeah, Pedro Pascal called the upcoming movie that was originally supposed to be season 4 of The Mandalorian one of the greatest adventure movies ever. And you are risking destroying your expectations with that belief. Because that's just insane to call it when it's not out yet and no one has seen the trailers unless they find the leaked footage. And especially after how The Mandalorian ended last time for people, yeah, you gotta back that up if you're gonna break something like that. But we'll see. I'm hoping. Meanwhile, season 2 of Ahsoka trailer leaks and reveals a look at the new Sith-like villain. Also, they have announced the return of Baylan Skoll, who is now played by a new actor from the Game of Thrones universe. Rory McCain. New Baylan Skoll following Ray Stevenson's tragic passing right before the show came out. But the production was set to begin after the event was over. The filmmaker could only show off a concept trailer of the series, but yeah, it's presenting a classic style that establishes Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren are racing against time to stop Skrull from releasing a powerful new threat. The Mortis gods are all dead, so if I had to take the wildest guess who it is, it's probably Abeloth, a character that was in the Legends timeline that got unleashed in Fate of the Jedi series and the combined alliance of Darth Krayt and Luke Skywalker had to stop her. And it was supposed to continue the story of Abeloth's final end when they were going to go to Mortis and get the dagger that was left behind there. And, well, that was never really addressed because the series ended because the Legends timelines were erased. So, goddamn it, Disney. But, yeah, that was going on. But we also get the return of Zeb, Ezra Bridger, and Harrison Dula. Meanwhile, have their hands full with basically the Heir to the Empire story, with sinister plans for their galaxy with Grand Admiral Thrawn. And we catch sight of a mysterious new villain who appears to be a Force-wielding Night Sister. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, they're basically adapting Heir to the Empire saga trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy, essentially, into one movie, which kind of could be a problem if they did that. But I'm curious to know how they're going to execute it if they're just going to do one film. But also, the Night Sister, who's also a Force wielder, is wielding what looks like could be a green lightsabers or perhaps lightsaber whips, similar to what we saw in the Acolyte and what Darth Lumia, Darth Lady of the Sith from the Legends timeline wielded. So, yeah, it's set to begin development after the celebration was over, so they're probably starting it already. Meanwhile, the VP of Lucasfilm Animation goes deep on the Tales of the Underworld, an upcoming short series, and a Maul Shadow Lord as an upgrade to what they're used to doing, and explaining how things have so much changed with their animation projects. Saying Sam was involved a lot with the character death and the lore, along with our head writer and supervising director. She explained, the VP explained, he's involved with the character death of Maul because both him and Lucasfilm CCO, Dave Filoni, created the character together in animation, and he gets to read the scripts and he gets to watch the whip reels. He gets to watch the pool color, he provides input. So, yeah, and here's the thing I've been wanting to ask about this. Like I said, if they go forward with continuing the series for just until the end of when Maul is trapped on Malachor, will they finally address Lady Kira and how she, after the events of Han Solo's story and Solo a Star Wars story, will they address the whole mess with with addressing the whole thing with Lady Kira after she left with Maul, and when she comes back in after Empire Strikes Back as the leader of Crimson Dawn and trying to do the whole war against the Empire, and her subsequent survival after Return of the Jedi. Will they address that ever? I'm curious as to know that. No, not only that, but yeah, and last but not least, I want to mention this. Alan, I can't pronounce his last name. The actor who played K2SO, iconic character from Rogue One, a Star Wars story. He admitted that Season 2's Andor's K2SO is using the same stilts he used in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which I must stress was 10 years ago, so feel old. And Andor Season 2 has been doing a lot of critical acclaim reception from people. Well, it has gotten a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes in their critical acclaim, the highest rated Star Wars project of all time. So, fuck yeah, let's fucking go. And the fact that they addressed the whole whether or not Darth Sidious and Darth Maul would show up in this, they have confirmed that no, they are not showing up in this series. They are not going to be present in this, making this not only one of the most interesting Star Wars series to happen with all this, well, the deep political stuff and the covert subversion of the characters, but also the fact that they're going to have no Force wielders in this show. It's probably going to be the first Star Wars series not to be focused on lightsabers, on the Force, and all that. You could say Book of Boba Fett did that a little bit, but Grogu came back, so the Force was still a factor into this, and Luke Skywalker was in the series. So, yeah. Andor is 100% no Jedi, no direct Sith involvement, no Force-wielding powers. It's pure, what's the best word I could describe it? It's pure humanity, essentially, I'm saying. It's pure humanity of how these characters react to everything, to the trends of the Star Wars universe in the wake of the Empire's rise to power and the subsequent rebellion that forms in against them. Though they did have a bunch of Easter eggs in season 1 of the Force Unleashed and other Star Wars lore, but they don't count in terms of being really relevant to the plot. They're just there to be Easter eggs and all that, essentially, for many. Which is cool, and it canonizes a bunch of stuff that we love to see, but we'll see how things go. But that's the end of our episode of Star Wars Celebration. This was your host, Eric Brown of Neo Reality Collective. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, check out my content and script below. Stay tuned for more. Follow me on Blue Sky. Follow me everywhere on social media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, NRE Universe. And also, I moved my podcast to Red Circle because podcaster for Spotify just got so complicated and confusing, so I moved on from that, and we'll see how things go. Also, my Phil Jimenez interview finally launched last week, and that was fucking awesome. An hour and 16, a total of 69 minutes of me and him talking about comics and all this stuff about the future of DC and Phil Jimenez's upcoming Titans Annual 2025 issue that focuses on Donna Troy, which is awesome. So we'll be seeing you all again next time. This is your host, Eric Brown of Neo Reality Collective. I'll see you all again next time. Stay tuned for this last outro, and I'll see you all again. Peace and take care.
Was our latest edition of Neo Reality Collective. Be sure to follow and support NRE creator Eric Brown on Twitter and YouTube. Check the links in the description below, and we'll see you all next time.